find someone who's had success and is where you want to be, because you're going to get to the finish line much faster with fewer mistakes, with fewer lessons learned, right? And as long as the net is a positive gain, who cares? You'll figure it out. One of the reasons I love real estate is it's not corporate America, and we get to pick and choose who we want to work with and what we want to do.
Without Fear of Her Future podcast is for women who are passionately pursuing financial freedom, using multiple streams of income and real estate to accomplish their goals. We are here to empower you to be brave, dream big, and design a life that you love that inspires others to do the same. I'm your co-host, Andrea Engstrom, a real estate investor and business coach, and co-founder of the Partnership for Realtors. And I'm here with my co-host, Tresa Todd, founder of the Women's Real Estate Investors Network and author of the book, Without Fear of Her Future. Over the past 2 years, Tresa has had over 300,000 join her masterclass, where she teaches women how to become successful real estate investors. Hey, Tresa.
Hey, Andrea. Well, another amazing guest today. We are talking to Amy Mahjoory, an expert real estate investor and educator, best-selling author, HGTV personality, and keynote speaker. So despite being a global leader for Dell, Amy left her 14-year career because she knew that the false security of a 9-to-5 job was not the life she was going to live. Welcome, Amy. We're so glad you're here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm just going to jump right in. While you were still working a full-time job, you started investing in real estate part-time.
Yes.
So can you talk about what that was like, to be able to juggle both? So many of our listeners are doing that.
So this was 10 years ago. I had been with Dell for 14 years, and I thought my dream job was with Nike. So I'm trying to get my dream job with Nike. And I was obsessed with HGTV. So I wanted to actually just flip a couple of houses just as a side hustle, really as a hobby. Back then, I didn't know any better. I was never a manager of people. And I was like, I'm going to make some extra money just to blow it on like vacations and clothes. And it was crazy because I'm very competitive. And even as a side hustle, I wanted to still take this seriously. I didn't know what I was doing. I had my full-time job, so I invested in a coaching program. And it was so funny because I swiped my credit card, put $25,000 on a credit card. And I was like, okay, cool. These are my goals. Let's go flip 2 or 3 houses in downtown Chicago. And before I knew it, 1 year later, I bought, renovated, and sold 10 properties in downtown Chicago while working for Dell. And it was really because of my ability to scale through private money. So when that happened, I was like, wow, sure. The earning potential was nice. But I really fell in love with the transformation process. So for me, it was, just diving into flipping and new builds and just sticking with that for a while.
Wow, that's incredible. That is success right off the bat. I love it. I love it. So, I'm guessing that is what gave you the confidence to leave corporate America.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I tell my students all the time, I tend to live on the extreme opposite end of the spectrum than most people. And for me, it was about 6 months in when I was treating real estate as a side hustle that I actually really considered pursuing this full time. And for me, that metric was I had 3 properties that were under construction. Based upon the turnaround time, I knew I was going to turn a profit. And I was confident in the team that I had built. And so I felt comfortable leaving my job at Dell. And I kind of dabbled around it, for a few months. But it was actually a year and a half into the process that I ended up leaving. And I really just dragged it out because I'm stubborn. I'm very transparent about this. I'm stubborn. I was at Dell for 14 years. I was calling up my VP every week, asking for a severance package. And finally, he was like, no, will you just leave? So we amicably parted ways, and we still keep in touch.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, what would you say to women who are considering quitting their corporate job to become an investor?
Yeah, of course. Look, I'm a product of coaching, right? And so I love coaching. I believe in coaching. And I would say first decide, is real estate for you? You don't have to know what your investment strategy is. That's irrelevant. decide, is this an industry that's a game changer for you? And if it is, find somebody who is where you want to be, see if they have a mentorship program, and have them hold your hand every step of the way. Because without, with coaches and mentors, that should help eliminate and minimize a lot of the fear that, you may or may not be having.
And how did you select the coaching program that would be right for you? Because that's a big decision when you talked about investing $25,000 and most people go, that's a lot. But like, how did you choose that program and know that it was going to be a good fit?
So again, for me, I don't do a lot of homework and research. I knew for me though, I needed everything from A to Z, right? Like how to build a team, how to interview contractors, how to analyze deals, how to market for leads. So I needed a one-stop shop. So I was able to narrow it down to that. But really it was like the first seminar I went to, they were like, we have a coaching program. I said, sounds great. Like sign me up. So, but a lot of it is you, right? And like you ladies know this, it's like, are you coachable? Are you disciplined enough to take action? If you are, then great. There's no reason why you guys can't do this.
Beautiful. So you mentioned earlier the big game changer for you was being able to raise private capital. And so talk a little bit about how you funded some of those first deals in the beginning to get started.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. So let me try to be clear and concise about it. I didn't realize I was good at raising money. I started to put deals under contract, and I always share a story about my first deal. My first deal actually ended up being my first mistake. So even though I turned an approximate $20,000 profit on it, it was a mistake because 3 weeks into the renovation, my acquisitions manager, which is just a fancy way of saying realtor, you guys, brought me 2 rental properties, and each rental property was netting $300 a month in positive cash flow. And all I needed to buy both of those rental properties was $40,000 total. Well, I ended up putting $50,000 of my own money into my first flip. So I didn't have the money I needed for the down payment. And so for me, that was a game changer. Now, some people may be thinking, why didn't you just raise it? Like, that's what you do. I hadn't prioritized that part of my business yet, right? You're like drinking out of a fire hose. You're trying to get all these things done with your coaches. So that was a game changer. That was my biggest lesson learned. So from deal number 2 and then moving forward, I prioritized not just building my power team, but also raising money. And it was not from friends and family members. For people who know me, I have a stubborn side as well. I'm very transparent about that. I had a lot of friends and family members, especially my dad, and they were not supportive in what I was doing. They thought I was crazy. So I was like, forget it. I'm going to lean into my community that I have that supports me. I'm going to prove you guys wrong. I don't need your help. And so the money I ended up raising was from complete strangers, right? So how do you take a stranger and build rapport and trust so that they give you their money?
That's a huge question. I want to dig into that more on this call. I think that's something that's like a fascinating element that our listeners are going to be so excited about. But before we get there, I want to ask you to go back to something you said just a second ago. You used the term power team. Tell us what makes a good power team. Like, what are you looking for in terms of roles on your team, and who gets to be on those spots?
Yeah, this is also what's so crazy because, as I mentioned earlier, I was never a manager at Dell. I was always an individual contributor. I was never a leader. I was always an executor of tasks. When I got into real estate, though, a consistent message that my coaches told me was be very selective with who you choose to surround yourself with, right? Surround yourself with those on the same mission as you. And I took that very seriously because I knew nothing about real estate and I wanted to be successful, even with just a couple flips. So even with my virtual assistants, like, I did not care what category I was trying to fill. I only worked with the best. I invested a premium in hiring the best lawyer, the best CPA, and working with the best realtors, architects, and designers. And 18 months into that process, when I took a step back and looked at my org chart, this is what was so crazy, is really by remembering that message and being true to it. Everyone in my org chart was a business owner. They were an entrepreneur. Like, they owned their own businesses. So for me, it made it a lot easier because we just spoke the same language. Sorry, you guys, I'm losing my voice.
It's okay. So good. So good. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about when you're finding these, finding capital, private money lenders, how would you advise to structure a deal with someone who is providing the capital?
Yeah, there are so many ways to do it. It's really what works for you. Earlier, maybe I didn't say this. I'm also greedy, you guys. So because I'm a product of coaching and I know how simple it can be to raise money the right way from the right people, I'm going to tell you all day long, and this is what I do. I structure all of my private money lenders in a debt position. I don't give up equity, but you can, right? For those of you who are just starting out, if you want to give up a certain percentage of your equity, that's fine. I had one of my students come up to me the other day. She's a general contractor in San Diego. And she was like, look, I don't want to focus on the money. I just want to focus on, building these multifamily investments. So Amy, do you know of anyone who'd be willing to fund the deal? It's only, but all in, right? 100% of the deal in exchange for 50% of the profits. So there's so many ways you can structure it, whether it's debt or equity. I'm going to challenge you guys to do it in a debt position though, which for me is always a 12% annualized return.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, how do you find reliable investors that are, this is kind of going back, that are not friends and family? You mentioned that. So how are you finding your investors?
Yeah, a lot of it starts with mindset. So number one is we have to believe that we are providing others with an opportunity. I hear all day long, I feel bad asking someone for money. Like, I don't want them thinking they're doing me a favor. I don't have any rich friends and family members. So stop feeling bad because they're not doing you a favor. You're doing them a favor by allowing them to invest with you, right? You're the one offering them double-digit returns backed by real estate. Right. So they don't get it in the stock market. They don't get it in the bank. So number one is mindset and really believing that no one's doing you a favor. Number two is if you want to target friends and family, that's fine. The strategies I can share with you are the exact same as if you were to target a stranger. But once you're in the right mindset, what you want to do is remind yourself the minute you leave your house, everyone you encounter is a prospective private money lender. Right. So it can be neighbors, it can be people at the grocery store, people from church, people from sporting events, people, the mailman, right? But it's like people at airports, but how in the world do you target them? Like, what do you say, Amy, you're telling me I can raise money from my Uber driver. What in the world do I say, right? So
yes, what do you say? Like, how do you start that conversation, Amy?
So it starts with your 4-second power pitch, which is 13 words. So I'm going to break this down for you and then I'll use it as an example. So the 13 words is, I show people how to earn double-digit returns backed by real estate. So I'm going to give you guys 2 examples. So for those of you who are brand new at this, let's say you get into an Uber and let's say the Uber is not being very chatty. So what you can do is ask the Uber driver, hey, what do you do outside of Uber? Just so naturally, they're going to ask you what you do, right? And as a brand new real estate investor, that's all I would say. Oh, not a big deal. I show people how to earn double-digit returns backed by real estate. It's so nice to meet you. What is it that you say, that you do again? And you just put it back on them. And that's just step 1 where you're just planting seeds, right? But for those of you who are newer or who are experienced real estate investors, what you want to do is you don't want to disregard all of your credentials in your portfolio, right? So you can say something along the lines of, oh, I'm a multifamily syndicator and I show people how to earn double-digit returns backed by real estate, right? So you want that to be your call to action.
Woo. That is so powerful. Yeah, that seems like such a simple script. And most people, but I've never heard anybody say it that way. So I just want to say kudos because you make it sound really easy. How much money have you been able to raise in private capital using some of these strategies?
I mean, I stopped counting once I hit 40 million. So now this is over 10 years, right? But sure. I really, north of 40 million.
Absolutely amazing. Yes. Well, can you explain the frameworks of you call it a FACT method for networking efficiently and successfully? I'd love to hear more about that because sure. I love networking. It's something I'm really passionate about. So tell us more about that.
Sure. So I came up with a 4-step process to really try to help simplify what it looks like to get out there and raise money from strangers. And so the fact framework, it starts with building your foundation. So Cliff Notes version there is like, who are you and what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? Can you clearly articulate what's in it for you and what's in it for them before you get out there and start telling the world, right, that you offer double-digit returns backed by real estate? So it's establishing your investment strategy, figuring out your goals, getting organized. What does your website look like? What does your social media presence look like? And then the end of the fact framework starts with that 4-second power pitch. So as you're out there building your foundation, you're confident in who you are and what you're doing. Confidence is huge. Then you go into taking action. So action is step 2 of my fact framework. Now that's where you start to connect with people, anyone and everyone above friends and family members. Now, the examples I shared with you earlier, Uber drivers, people at airports, that's a part of taking action. How do we connect with people on LinkedIn? What does that look like? How do we connect with people that we haven't talked to in 20 years? No, you're not going to call up an old neighbor and say, do you have $100,000, right? Like there's a strategy behind opening up those relationships. And then step 3 is your credibility piece. So I have like 17 different credibility pieces that I use in my business. So what do your credibility pieces look like? Because every time you capture the interest of a private money lender, you're going to sit down for a 30-minute coffee talk and you're going to take them through one credibility piece. That's it. And you're going to use all of your credibility pieces as follow-ups, as touch points to continue to educate them on who you are and what you're doing. Because I always tell everyone, the number one reason why everyone in this country is not acting as a private money lender, assuming they're in a position to do so, is because they're simply not educated on the process, right? So let's just get out there and educate them.
Mm-hmm.
And then that leads to step 4, which is the transactions. So you guys do steps 1 through 3 consistently, the transactions will start to follow. Once the transactions are happening and you've converted private money lenders, you want to focus on 2 things. Number 1, how do I get them to reinvest? And then number 2, how do I get them to increase their investment amount?
Oh,
Fantastic.
yeah, I know. I love this. I want to ask, how in the world did you accelerate so fast? 40 million to date. I mean, I know that's 10 years, but that's still a lot. An incredible accomplishment. What strategic steps did you take?
Yeah, and I'm going to sound like a broken record. Like, you guys, there's so much money that we can get our hands on as business owners and real estate investors. And it's literally been the 4-second power pitch from day one. And I tell people all the time, once you start raising money, it's going to have a snowball effect. You're going to have more confidence. It's going to turn into a game. You're not going to be scared. It's going to be fun. It's integrating these creative trust and rapport building strategies into your day-to-day lifestyle. It's not direct mail. It's not cold calling. It's building genuine relationships with everyone the minute you leave your house. So instead of going to a random, happy hour, be more strategic with it. Go to a happy hour where there are businessmen and women or people with money or people who have success or people in a powerful position, or save your money from coffee talks and go to a high ticket fundraising event, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I always talk about, I could care less about the Chicago Auto Show, but I invest $600 every year and I go to the black tie event because that's where people with money go, right? So it's not just targeting people with money, but it's anyone and everyone, because you never know who they know.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, Amy, there's going to be listeners that are hearing this and they're going to say, I need to raise private capital. This is brilliant. There's going to be other people that listen and say, I want to be a private money lender. Where do the people that you're talking to typically have funds to be able to loan? Where are they getting those funds?
There's more than a handful. Like, of course, the most common one is, cash sitting in the bank.
Right.
You guys can leverage home equity lines of credit. You can personal lines of credit. You can even use credit cards. Like, there are some low dollar projects that you can use credit cards for materials. Liquidate, if you have money in the stock market, you can liquidate the stock depending on what's giving you a better return. There are certain types of self-directed retirement accounts, life insurance policies, health savings accounts that you can leverage from. But you just want to make sure you're talking to the experts in those fields to make sure that you're withdrawing the money properly.
Perfect. Well, let's talk a little bit more about strategic networking. So, I mean, because we've heard you do it two ways. It's like you can talk to your Uber driver, you can pay $600 to go to a black tie event. How do you get into that mindset of like, okay, this is how I'm going to be strategic about where I'm going and where I'm spending my time? How do you make a decision based on how you're going to go after the relationships?
So I have a couple of strategies I share with all of my students. So write this down. So number one, instead, like I have so many people who will call me and say, "Oh my God, Amy, you're going to be so proud of me." Again, I'm very direct, you guys. Like I went to my monthly REIA, and I'm like, "That's great, but that's not going to produce results, at least for private money." So what do? You go into Meetup and you do a key term search for entrepreneurs. Not REIAs, but entrepreneurs. I don't care if it's the food and beverage gaming industry or the food and beverage industry, the gaming industry, the tech industry. Every entrepreneur has had to raise money. So if they don't want to help you, because you'll come across them as well, then they're going to know somebody who can. So that's just one example, right? Search for venture capital on Meetup. Go to every event with venture capital. It's people with money looking to invest and park money. And just make sure, whether it's your Uber driver or people at these meetups, that you end every single conversation with a request for a referral. Thank you so much for your time. Do you know if anyone else would like to earn double-digit returns backed by real estate? Right.
Brilliant.
So,
Yes. Love it. Love it. Well, can you tell us, everybody always loves to hear about this. What is a mistake that you've made when it comes to investing that our listeners may can learn from?
Man, I gave one mistake earlier was I used my own money instead of leveraging other people's money. I made a lot of mistakes, you guys. Earlier, Tresa, you said, wow, that was tremendous amount of initial success. Yeah, sure. I've had plenty of failures too, you guys. We're going to make money in real estate. We're going to lose money. My biggest lesson learned would be 2017. And I talk about it pretty consistently when I lost $1.4 million. And it sucked. Like, I cried every day in 2017. I thought multiple times about filing for bankruptcy. And it was like the perfect storm, right? I grew too fast. I hired a shady contractor. My properties took longer because of the shady contractor to hit the market. Well, when my properties hit the market, everyone else's property hit the market. Then buyers had leverage. It was a very small pocket in the north side of Chicago. So all those things happened. But I always tell people, like, just change your strategy, right? So I never thought about exiting the game. It was just, how do I fix this and move into the next strategy? I drained my retirement accounts. I sold all my assets. I put people on payment plans. I didn't have to do that. Okay, so you guys make sure that you're confident in what you're going to do if you take a loss, because if you structure it the right way contractually, you don't have to pay anyone back. They made an investment. There are no guarantees, right? But when you know how to make money in real estate and raise money, it's easy to make it back. It took me, my 1-year payment plan took 5 years. There are some people today who still only got back 90% of their principal. Like, I had to draw the line somewhere. I still have some people still today, people seeing me on social media, they're like, she's so successful. And whatever, thanks. I'm getting there, whatever that means. But I still have people on payment plans, so we all make mistakes, but you guys figure out how are you going to address those mistakes and move on instead of just exiting the industry.
I absolutely love that you said that. I love that you said that, because that is, and some people hear it and they're like, as soon as they even hear that there's a risk, they're too afraid to jump in, or as soon as they experience something, they jump out. And what is the alternative? What is the alternative? It's just to go back to a regular job where you're never going to get ahead. So I absolutely love everything you just said. So good.
Thank
So
you.
good. Well, tell me, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's really interesting because when you describe it that way, it's like people put all their money in the stock market and then it takes a nosedive and they don't ever,
Right.
they don't get that back. And if you take if you don't continue to invest, you don't ever have an opportunity to earn back your returns and to come back from a loss. So I think it's so important that people are not so scared away by it. I heard a statistic. I know it was Tony Robbins talking about it on the Ed Mylett show, but he was talking about how, there are 20 days over the last 20 years that if you would have pulled your money out of the stock market, you would not have made a return. Because that consistency over time is what does it. And I think the same thing is true for real estate investing is if we are consistent over time and keep getting in the game, keep getting back out there, keep doing it. But if we just experience a loss and then we never go back after it, and then we never have an opportunity to recover from it. So thank you so much for what you've shared.
Absolutely, you guys. And this is another reason where I'm like, and I'm sure you ladies would agree, find someone who's had success and is where you want to be, because you're going to get to the finish line much faster with fewer mistakes, with fewer lessons learned, right? And as long as the net is a positive gain, who cares? Just, you'll figure it out. One of the reasons I love real estate is it's not corporate America, and we get to pick and choose who we want to work with and what we want to do. So,
yes. Yes, I think you're just talking about coaching and mentoring is so important. Not to just jump out there yourself, but you having somebody that's just a step ahead of you that can lead and guide you.
Yeah, and earlier, Andrea, you asked, what did you look for when you invest in your coaching program? And I was like, I don't know, I just winged it. I probably wouldn't give you guys that advice. I would say find someone that like you ladies connect with, that you jive with, you speak the same language. Even if it's a bigger investment, it's very important that you like your coach, because if you don't, you're not going to, I don't want to say you're not going to be successful. You won't have as much success, and it's definitely not going to be as fun.
I agree. Love it. Love it. Oh my gosh. I mean, this was so good. So we always ask our guests 3 takeaways. What 3 things would you advise an investor or entrepreneur who is looking to be brave and grow, or is perhaps feeling stuck where they are?
Sure. So I guess the 3 things would be, just to kind of recap what we've been chatting about, is number 1, decide, is real estate the game changer for you? Do you want this? Because if you don't and you're not sure, then I would wait before I move forward with any coaching. Number 2, find a coach. Find a coach who has proven success and see if they're taking on new clients. And number 3 is surrender to the process. Like, just do it. You have a coach for a reason. Don't question your coach. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Like, when I had my coach, I would just call up my coach every 2 weeks and say, all right, I did what you told me to do. Now what? Now what? Now what? Like, those are my 3 takeaways.
That's great.
Powerful.
Oh, Tresa, do you have any takeaways from today's episode?
Gosh. No, this was just so good. So good. So many of the things that you shared are just, you know what? I love practical application. And that's what you did. You got the coaching, you did what the coaches said, and you found success. So that's my takeaway. That's what I want anybody to hear. Get the coach, do what the coach says, and find success. And when it doesn't work out perfectly, don't give up. Don't get mad. Just try it again.
That's right. Amy, we love for our guests to issue a challenge to our listeners. So what is something that you would challenge our listeners to do this week that will move them forward in their business as a real estate investor or as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, just for fun, don't overthink it. I just said surrender to the process. Take my 4-second power pitch and start applying it. The minute you leave your house, everyone you encounter is a prospective private money lender. So the next time someone says, what do you do, or how have you been? What have you been up to? It's those 13 words. I show people how to earn double-digit returns backed by real estate. That's it. You guys do that, you're going to start raising money in a couple days.
Woo! This is so good. Love it.
So, Amy, if people are loving what they're hearing from you, how can they follow you? How can they connect with you to hear more?
The best way is Instagram. I respond to all my DMs personally. I'm on there way too much. I'm always sharing content on there, specifically on raising capital. So feel free to connect with me on Instagram at Amy Mahjoory, and I'll do what I can to support you guys.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Amy. I know that our listeners have taken away some amazing practical application nuggets from you. I love when people bring scripts, especially for the purpose of like introducing themselves or networking, because so many people are nervous about that. So thank you for just breaking that down so simply. Well, everybody. Yes, everybody who's listening, if you heard something that helped you today, please share this podcast with a friend who needs to raise capital. Be sure to hit follow and leave us an honest review. It helps us know we're making an impact and helps us to reach more people and introduce them to Amy as well.
That's so true. Well, if you are ready to create the life you've always desired through investing in real estate, just like our guest did, then check out the Without Fear of Her Future Masterclass in the show notes on this episode.
Awesome. Well, Amy, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you, ladies. Appreciate your time. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely. On behalf of the Women's Real Estate Investors Network and Tresa Todd, I'm Andrea Engstrom, encouraging you to be brave and dream big.